Hi and welcome. My name's Kelly from DNX.Solutions. I'm joined today by Adrian from AI Media. Welcome.
Thank you.
We worked together recently on an interesting hypothesis for a particular use case that you guys were working on. We're going to unpack that today. There's a couple of other things that I'm really interested in getting your insight on, particular things like evaluation, like model evaluation, how you think about contextual advertising because it's super core and critical to your business and your customers, and how you map between cost, performance, and things like that. So we're going to unpack that a lot today. There's a lot more. I'd love for you to introduce yourself. Who is AI Media, and more importantly, who's Adrian? And what do you guys do?
Thank you. Great to be here. Thank you for the opportunity. So AI Media has been around since 2002. Predominantly, we provide three services to our customers, which is transcriptions, which you will normally see as captions down the bottom of a broadcaster or television workflow. Translations, where we'll translate that into one of multiple hundred languages. And respeaking or redubbing, where we'll then have an audio track that's generated from that transcription in an emotive voice, such that that can be used for other purposes. So we're present in approximately 80% of the broadcasters in particularly Americas, where our caption insertion devices sit in the workflow. So very high up in the workflow, able to look at uncompressed audio, able to look at uncompressed video, and most importantly, it's then injecting the caption and the translation streams so that when you're on your television and you can pick up the caption button, it's our technology that has historically done that with humans, but over the last 5 to 10 years has been increasingly automated and using AI technology, which we'll talk a little bit about today.
We will indeed. Super interesting. And one of the hypotheses that we were working on was, what if we could take signals from live captioning, couple that with some advertising information or contextual information more than anything else, but don't, I suppose, impact the speed or the experience that is being provided by the live caption. And a conversation we were having, I think yesterday or very recently, was around everyone's a content creator these days, and you have access to all of these different content creators. So again, the hypothesis being, can we take some of those signals, can we put some contextual advertising to it and probably provide a more enriched experience for other advertising campaigns or for the content creators themselves. So that's my explanation of it. I'd love for your view around how this sort of came about and really what it's for.
So the kind of the genesis of this is we've got a couple of home shopping broadcasters located in the Americas and one located in Asia Pacific. And they kind of came to us with this, we're doing captions already. We do captions for the hard of hearing. We do captions for accessibility purposes. It's a cost. We do it. It's a necessary part of our workflow. The AI media equipment is already present inside our workflow. But how can we use this generated text to create revenue? And that's where this whole conversation kind of ebbed and flowed around. So the caption flow is essentially is there with every word that is being said by sheer definition, and it's our AI layered technology that is providing highly accurate captions in more or less real time. I mean, it's within a kind of second or two of the words being spoken. So all that is present already in these customers and many, many, many more customers. Yeah. But the trick was, and that's what we're going to talk about today, how to make money from those captions. Yep. Something you've already generated. And that's kind of where this joint project that we've been working on for a little while kind of kicked off, and the genesis of it.
Yeah, monetization is a really interesting point, right? Because everyone sort of looks at AI and goes, well, can I get staff productivity? Where's the ROI and all that sort of stuff? One of the most important, well, maybe not most important, but one of the most interesting conversations that you can possibly have is monetization. So how did you guys look at this and think there is actual revenue generation activities here, or there's opportunities, I suppose? Where does that sort of come from?
So let's kind of dig into the bones of this now. Yeah. So these home shopping channels are no longer one or two 24-hour channels. They are in some cases thousands of channels, and you touched on the influencers, you touched on the social channels that are going through them. Essentially, they have many parallel streams of talent talking about product. They could be paid staff or they could be promotion staff, such that as part of their social media conversations, they are positioning brands that are also covered by the home shopping channel. So the idea was that as all these thousands of parallel video streams are being generated and captioned, can we find the products in what is spoken and do direct call to actions from them? Advertising style call to actions. So the imagery, if you will, is that, talking head, talking about, the example that we built up and used to kind of illustrate this is Rebecca. Rebecca is an influencer. She's talking about her wedding, her fluffy dog, her, the challenges of getting married. But all the way through that, she's peppering in Prada handbag, Gucci shoes, other things that I know very little about. And the trick was, is the word that Rebecca's saying, or is the product that Rebecca's referencing something that is also in the shopping channel's internal database? Yep. And the internal database is an important component of this. The internal database that's present inside these home shopping channels is rich metadata. It is, I want to talk about, for example, Prada handbags. The price for Prada handbags would be, the description of Prada handbags would be, the clickable link for purchasing Prada handbags would be, times by 3 or 4 other metadata aspects. But that sentence might be Prada handbags and Gucci shoes. So how do we merge these two metadata streams together such that an experience an experience on the television can be delivered with Rebecca talking? Oh, she's just said Gucci handbags. The Gucci handbag graphic is appearing. So that's pulling the graphic image from. And a piece of text or a piece of prose is appearing about Gucci handbags. But now she's moved along to Prada handbags, Gucci shoes. So now we have to morph that experience into being a conversation about 2 different aspects. Yeah. And that's where we started using the AI technology layer that we're about to talk about to merge those 2 aspects together to make real-time prose generation for graphical enrichment of the home shopping channel, if you're still following. There we go.
And I remember one of the things that she consistently talked about as well, because she was going through her wedding and stuff like that, and all the toys that she wanted. Great, fantastic. But a winery as well. So I distinctly remember as sort of going through this process, it was like, up the top we would have contextual information around what they're talking about. It's like a winery in this location. It's about these things. So that's kind of the metadata tags that we had up the top. And then it was, a summary or a description of, well, what is it? What's the place? Where can you go? What is it good for? Like, that's kind of experience that was being provided around, either, the handbags, the products, or even a location as well. So it was actually quite interesting. And she was going all over the place in terms of, what was being said and stuff.
And just the going all over the place, if you're a home shopping channel, you've only got a limited inventory of things you're selling. That's right. So if Rebecca, who often goes down a little rabbit hole of things that she's particularly passionate about, but those products or directions or approaches are not part of my catalogue, these have to be filtered out of the conversation. Yeah. We don't want to be forming enrichment around everything Rebecca says. We want to only be using the knowledge base of the shopping channel to inform the graphical engines and the call to action engines. That's right. And sit there to allow people to buy the products as she's speaking. Which
was super interesting, super important as well. And you talked to this before, and you peppered this a couple of times now. I want to dig into this, the layering of AI. And we've had numerous conversations in terms of how you think about model evaluation, but also the different layers in which AI plays a significant part in this. It's not just one thing that sits over the top. Can you go deeper into AI layering for us?
Yeah, so core to AI media's technology is effectively a 4-stage technology stack, if you will.
Yes.
So the first layer of it we call pre-training or topic modeling, which is essentially telling the system likely vocabulary that will be spoken about. Normally that's more to do with people's names or exotic spelling of names, such that when the speech recognition layer hears a certain word, it has a certain weighting towards likely words.
Sure.
There are many examples of where a word could sound like a spoken voice could sound like many different words, and that first layer helps weight it slightly better. So that's the pre-training layer. Then the second layer is speech recognition, of which we're using a number of industry standard models from a range of vendors, and we switch that out. That's part of our special sauce as well, is to be able to find the one that at this particular moment we think is winning, and give our customers the ability to make that decision, or we make that decision on their part. So layer 2, speech recognition. Layer 3, if we're running through a translation model, we'll typically use a very different approach to speech recognition. They're two different they're two different skills, if you will.
Yes.
Some vendors do a very good job at one and not in the other, and some vendors do a good overlap. So again, we've got a library of translation engines that sit underneath that, such that if Rebecca's voice, who's speaking in English, wished to be pushed into Spanish, that would just be a matter of kicking the translation layer in.
Got it.
And the final layer, there are indeed people and companies out there that do a very nice job at creating human-sounding emotive audio, typically based off the text. So that is a text-to-speech layer, which sits then at the bottom to generate audio. And then more into the Prada example that we're talking about there. So we've now got a whole row of text that's being spoken by Rebecca, blah, 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 Gucci shoes, blah, 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 Prada handbags. Filtering occurs. Well, not strictly speaking AI, it's a very important part of the work that DNX and AI Media did, was to ensure that the back end is not listening to every word, it's listening to words that are a likelihood to be a product. Capitalized words, proper nouns. So the filtering layer then sits there and goes, okay, this is a proper noun. We will then assess that against the knowledge base, which is the home shopping channel's internal database, where all these assets are stored and all this metadata is stored. And I guess part of that, or the final layer, is now merging that all together to form a less than 120 character, 160 character text block that's suitable for positioning in the lower third of the graphic engine on the screen, or as a companion asset outside of the video player, such that in a web experience you've now got kind of the outside of the player doing some things, and most importantly the call to action button, the I really do want to buy the thing that Rebecca's talking about now button. Which
had a little bit more enrichment when we get into the web experience as well. Speed's really important here. Performance is super critical, because one of the things that we were obviously making sure of is if we were doing enrichment and we were capturing these nouns and these very important information in terms of, that's a product, that's not, oh, there's another product, that we weren't too delayed. All right, so every time that they spoke about Prada, bang, up came Prada. But then if very quickly Gucci then came along, oh, no, let's flip that out. Now that couldn't have been a delay in terms of that. So how do you think about mapping and matching performance against this as well? Because that was one of the hypotheses. We could not, I suppose, interrupt or inject latency or increase latency into how we're displaying this information, right?
Exactly. So one of the core requirements from these customers was this had to be a live experience. Honestly, doing this recorded would be just trivially easy.
Very.
But this is a live experience. So they want to be able to have these video feeds in real time coming out of the relative systems and have the call to actions as a live experience. So we don't have that much time, in honesty. Captions have been performance tuned through the years that AI Media has been around to appear as quickly as possible. So you're seeing the captions within 2 or 3 seconds, and we've got a certain ability to delay the video as well if we need to gain some extra time for whatever reason. But we couldn't have any additional overhead by doing the filtering and the prose collection logic. So one of the original and most important success criteria for this entire implementation was, as you say, time. And the budget for time we had as under 1 second. So the key thing was that this entire rendering process would go such that a line of captions could be enriched, as we called it, before the next line of captions crashed into it, because obviously the experience would be heavily damaged if it did not do that path. So time was important.
Yeah, super important. So what's next? This is an amazing use case in terms of enrichment for content creators and home shopping channels and things like that. we think about broader experiences that, and the type of customers that you guys serve, which is a lot globally. I know for a fact you certainly support AWS's customers and AWS themselves for a lot of the stuff that they do. What is next for either this particular use case, or what are you exploring moving forward?
So I think the main foundation that it's important to underline here is that the caption encoders are present already in all of these broadcasters.
Yep.
So this is not a how do I get into my broadcast workflow with some newfangled technology. This is how do I take the existing technology that's present in the workflow and do some new party tricks with it.
Interesting.
So, I think we kind of half touched on it before, but captions were considered to be a cost of business, a necessary cost, an important cost of business, but a cost of business. Whereas the contextual advertising approach is a revenue generator. So what's next is more in the revenue generation type side.
Yep.
Now, that could be something as simple as I'm traditionally presenting in English. I would like to present in Swedish and French and Hindi and Mandarin. So essentially remapping, in our example, Rebecca's voice into all of these different languages, such that you now have multiple paths to different audiences, and those different audiences are obviously going to buy the product in a new market that was previously untouched.
Yep.
But it also adds the ability to add additional advertising over the top. So syndication is apparently quite an important topic for these shopping channel type things.
Okay.
So they're not just necessarily pushing things that are inside their database, they're pushing a federated set of data that sits behind that. People who are their partners and their downstream providers are being able to push their products, their SKUs into the mix. So I don't think this is the end of the journey by any stretch of the imagination. I think we've got the hard bit solved, potentially, which is the making sure that what is said is able to be actioned by downstream systems. And now it's just a matter of further touching those downstream systems to get them more federated, stronger, and effectively battle-tested and out there in as many places as possible.
Awesome. So what I'm hearing here is, if you're thinking about different use cases for the future, revenue generation is going to be key, and that's obviously buy-in for the business in terms of investment, because there's capital investment to be able to build this stuff, right? Yep. And there's time and so on and so forth. But if you then think about, well, how do I monetize not just revenue generation for us, but also revenue capturing for the customers that you're working with, those home shopping networks, broadens their horizon, maybe even broadens their partnerships as well. Yeah.
It's a lot easier a conversation to have when your customer is going to make net profit or additional revenue from a implementation of technology than it is to say, this is new technology, it's going to cost you, see how we go. So it's a much cleaner conversation when you're revenue generating for your customer as opposed to costing them.
Love it. We could talk all day, and we've had numerous conversations over the period of time, but unfortunately we've run out of time. Thank you so much for sharing the time with us today. Really do appreciate it. There's so many little nuggets here that hopefully the listeners are taking away in terms of understanding just different models, different ways of evaluation, different ways of thinking about monetization, and just use case expansion. So thank you so much for sharing the time with us today.
Thank you. Enjoyed it. Thank you.
Well, thank you everyone for watching. Really do appreciate your time. Keep an eye on the YouTube channel as well for more information. Thank you.